Thank you, everyone, for your patience with us. It's been a strange start to the new year. We were set to do the new Izumi Suzuki novel, Set My Heart on Fire, which we will still be doing. We have a very exciting guest for that, but due to the fires, we have postponed that. As for today's conversation, we have Caleb Femi. Caleb is a Nigerian-British author, filmmaker, photographer, and former Young People's Laureate for London. Reminded of togetherness in a time of what can feel like isolation and great loss, this book is an immersive, poetic epic taking place over one night at an underground London house party, published by our friends over at FSG. So without further ado, let's bring Caleb on. Hi.
Oh, hi, hi.
Thanks for
Finally,
doing this.
I've
Thank you
been
so
so
much for
excited
doing
to
this.
meet you.
I know, same. It's surprising to me that our paths haven't crossed, but I'm so happy that you agreed to do this. I loved your book so much.
I appreciate that.
Your first collection was a tribute to the community that raised you, and this
hmm
collection, your second, is about partying. It's lighter, it's fun, experimental, but still interwoven with harsh truths and immense emotional depth. What made you want to write this second collection?
So my first book came out 2020, slap bang in the middle of lockdown. And it felt like for everything that was going on in the world, there was enough heaviness. And the conversations that I was having in and around the book wore me down pretty quickly. And then actually felt that what was the priority in discussion, and what was needed for us to draw, for me anyway, for me to draw my attention to, was just like community, was togetherness, was the understanding the what we had lost, the fact that we were all indoors mostly, isolated from ourselves as a community. The function of that what it contributes to our humanity, was something that was so palpable. And around that time, I started working with Virgil Abloh, and we were both in conversation with those same themes, like what the world can't have right now is close gatherings and partying, but actually, more than anything, what we need, is that. So we were looking at like David Mancuso, we were looking at the lineage of parties,
Mhm.
throughout the decades. Some of the ideas fed into his final show eventually, but also, I guess, for me on my own personal journey as a writer, the Wickedest was birthed out of that as well.
I saw an interview where you were talking about the function of a party. What have you found in your exploration that the true sort of core functions of these parties and of these gatherings in a community are?
It's the first place that we actually exchange human information,
Mm.
in all its various layers. For a community specifically that is like facing lots of different structural hardships, like the only way that you can actually find, new and innovative ways to survive and to thrive even, is by speaking to people and
Mhm.
like comparing notes and figuring out how this person has like, dealt with a particular problem, or like someone has heard of like, a job opportunity. For me, growing up, going to house parties with my parents, the debrief that they would have on the way back was
Mhm.
like information gathering. So my
Yeah.
my first sort of understanding of the function of parties was that. But
Mm.
then, like, as I grew up and started attending parties myself, my understanding of human connection, really peaked. The membrane between like reality and possibilities was really thin.
One of my favorite parts of the night, or I guess sometimes it's the morning, is when you get to sit in a group and talk about what you all experienced, and you kind of do get closer to the realization of there is no one truth of what
Yeah.
happened. There is no one reality. How do you think
Mm.
being an artist and a creative creates a more singular experience of, the party or of life from your point of view?
I think for me, what I've discovered, in every sort of artistic discipline, I engage in, is that honesty and vulnerability, should I say, like
Mm,
breeds intimacy, and
mm.
therefore breeds like, the more I like go into the privateness of my life, the more there's a public connection,
Yeah.
because we're all human and we all have at its very core the same the same experiences, the same vulnerabilities, the same loves, the same fears.
Mm.
Um, so if art is supposed to be about connecting ourselves, then like that's one of the cornerstones that you have to follow, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really wanted to exercise that in the Wickedest, and stepping into a house party. Once you pass that threshold, there's a real intimate contract that you're like engaging in. Someone has allowed you into their home,
Mhm.
um, and that in itself like should begin um, some sort of, or foster some sort of like connection amongst everyone who's there.
Yeah, and it's always so fascinating to me. I think like we as humans sort of wait for an invitation to be vulnerable,
Mm, mm,
intimate, and maybe as artists we're a bit more programmed or at least used to being the first to go there. But I'm always so sort of like wonderfully and whimsically amazed by, when I do that and someone is so quick to be like, "Oh, me too, thank goodness." And I like that's why I love the medium of writing so much because and part of the reason I started this book club was because there were so many topics that I knew people wanted to talk about, but didn't know how. They didn't have an in
mm,
for it. And I think we oftentimes use art as our way of really translating what we go through personally.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you decide on setting this in one single night?
This might be collapsing just like human experience in general, but like the essence of a party exists perpetually anywhere and anytime. A party is ruined when like you have to talk about it, and when you have to talk about the night and how it was. It's never the same. Like the day after talking about like an awesome party, it just, you can't translate the essence of that, and you have to be there. I need to plunge you into this world. You need to have the most intimate POV. I need to implicate you actually, because
Yeah.
most of us, we read in a way that sometimes feels a little bit too voyeuristic. That's what I love about the medium of poetry. It really tries to collapse that and
Mm,
involve you into
yeah.
the moment. And also it makes for a better read. Like
Yeah.
it's like a poetry collection that's like waxing lyrical about like different parties and different moments can just feel a little bit too intellectualized. I was
Yes.
just like, this is the one space, man. Just come and have a good time.
Yeah, I love that the New York Times called this collection alive in the way poetry should be. I find that very true. The sort of sporadic formatting and word choice creates a bit of chaos that is reminiscent of a party. How did you play with tempo to enhance that feeling?
Actually, that was one of the most interesting exercises when putting this together.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to, so whilst I was writing this, I wrote it around the world. I was initially I was working on industry. There's a
Great.
scene
Oh,
that we were, you
love.
know, I'm obsessed as a fan.
Yeah, huge
So
fan.
it was a pleasure to work on it.
Yeah.
And I was in different places that had different tempos
Mm.
to the party, of course, led by different genres of music, different types of cultures. Felt that the night itself had its own pace and its own rhythm that kind of enshrouded everything else. It was the perfect sort of atmosphere. So I focused more on that. And then I was thinking a lot about the curation of like a party. If it starts at 11 and finishes at 4, you
Hmm.
really, there's a science behind a successful night.
Yes.
People
Yeah.
just don't, like the good people anyway, just don't just throw it together and hope the best happens.
Yeah,
So I
there's
had
like
to
a
talk
time where the energy gets low and but the also I think
exactly.
the challenge probably that you faced is when you're there, and it's happening right in front of you, you can feel the room and adjust accordingly and you sort of were having to predict a reader's experience without being able to have that instant feedback that you would have, in real time.
Yeah, no, you're right. I had to just like go with my spirit.
Yeah, and you play a lot with format here, like you include images, notes, app messages, timestamps. What made you decide to make the collection immersive in this way and kind of sprawling across all these different sort of formats?
A good party is so multifaceted. Like
Mhm.
there's only so much your words can do. Like as far as words could take you, then like another medium can plug the inherent like shortcomings of it. I felt like it was necessary to have color visual color, stimulate the eyes, not only through words, but like through everything that would last in your memory of a night. Because sometimes like you just remember the colors of a
Yeah.
night. You remember like bits of visions. And you're not quite sure what was fantastical and what wasn't. When you're like inebriated with like love and
Mhm.
vulnerability, sometimes that's the only thing that like you carry on through with your memory. So it
Yeah.
kind of felt like it was needed.
Yeah, like the visceral to kind of capture the experience. I also wonder, like you're a poet, but you're also a filmmaker and a photographer. Do you have a preference for what order these hyphenates go in, and how do you think these mediums inform one another?
I think in principle they all do the same thing. They all
Mhm.
try to capture a perspective. They all try to um, interrogate the moment, interrogate an idea
Mhm.
um, about humanity, and I think that is a beautiful thing. I wanted to have as many different tools in order to communicate my own human experiences through art. And once I realized the commonality between them, I was able to like ebb ebb and flow through them in order to just tell one particular story. I guess like on a personal artistic, like my own ethos is the constant the constant inclusion or the constant I guess like movement between one artistic state and another, because
Mhm.
life itself is that, isn't it? Like life
Mhm.
is you're not only looking at one human experience through one particular lens. It's all at the same time, and that's what makes it such an amazing experience, you know?
Yeah, yeah. My friend Will Arbery the other day, who's a wonderful playwright and writer, was saying, sometimes when he's having a hard time writing, he just reminds himself that artistic expression is just giving voice to the shy thing that wants to be said. And sometimes it's about figuring out how to translate that. Sometimes it might be through photography or moving image, and sometimes it might just be through writing. And it's like you figure out the way that you can give voice to the shy thing that deserves and needs to be heard.
Yeah, well said, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people are drawing comparisons between this collection and the Steve McQueen film Lovers Rock. Both are so beautiful and frozen inside one evening, painting an intimate portrait of Black British youth. Have you heard about this comparison, and how do you feel about this comparison?
Yeah, I've heard about it, and it's a pleasure. It's I feel honored, especially because it's part of the lineage. I think the wickedest and every single house party that I've been to in London, and not even just house parties, just I guess like nightlife culture
Hmm.
um in Britain that I've experienced has been built off that foundation that Lovers Rock depicted, where you find joy in the midst of a difficult living conditions, where you cultivate community and cultivate joy.
And I think like what you have in common is within your work, you use the experience of nightlife to document the broader context surrounding the shoops, the marginalization of low income communities of color, and still the party goes on. And we've talked about kind of
Mm.
how important that is, even when it can feel impossible. Can you expand on this a little bit? Like who you're hoping to reach and what you'd ideally want people to get from this collection, aside from just the pleasure of reading it?
I think for me, I really wanted to move all intellectualism to the side and
Hmm.
just like remind everyone, like whether it's like the birthday party of a 2-year-old, or whether it's like a family barbecue, whether it's a 25th birthday or 50th birthday, the precious time that we have together on this earth to celebrate one another is paramount. And there is always the possibility that it could be taken away. And if
Hmm.
we forget that, that will be the end of our humanity as we know it and as we love it. I really wanted it to be a personal conversation. Also, I don't want readers to think about it with too much sentimentality, because that also kills the party. I think the frivolity of a party had that having that like um presence of frivolity is also quite important to the nature of a party. Is both whimsical and both intimately profound at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yes.
So like at the end where it says like just go out into the world, like just don't tell anyone about this. Also, don't take anything other than you have felt in this book.
That's kind of why I love the formatting that you chose and the way you chose to do it because, I was reading this on set and people were like, what is that? What is that book about? And I was like, I actually am not gonna try to explain it to you. Just read it. And it's sort of like that thing of like, just come to the party. And there's a quote that you gave in a Guardian article that I loved and I think is really special. You said, I'm obsessed with laughter. I feel like it was important to make this work, but henceforth I'm solely preoccupied with being a merchant of joy. Can you tell me what you meant by being a self-proclaimed merchant of joy? Because in the poem Benny the House Regulator, I highlighted the part where you say, every morning the sun comes up, smug and unconcerned about my little life. What are we to learn from this? Humor will keep your abs in great shape and make it easier to stomach the terrors we are force-fed.
I think the quality of your life is determined by the richness of your joy.
Mm,
What is it all for?
mm,
What is the hard work, the strive, the
yeah.
difficulties, the tears? What is it all for
Mm-hmm.
if it isn't for joy? you
Yeah.
know and putting that, reversing that, flipping that on its head, for
Mm,
me was where the transformation of a better, or the quality of my life has improved
mm.
now that I center joy and look for joy, prioritize joy over grief, over sadness, over stress,
Yeah.
over anything that wants to break me, you know.
That's why I think like one of the most true lines in the book, and I put this on my story, and so many people responded to it when you say you either you laugh or rot. Because it's true. Like once you understand that it's if you're not doing that, then you have nothing. I think
Mm,
it sort of reframes things, and people I think forget that that is where we should be focused.
yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a favorite poem from this collection? We've heard a lot of feedback from Past the Ox and Lala watched
Yeah.
Dance with Another Woman.
No, I don't. It changes. Like all
Yeah.
in everything I write, I think that there's some days where I fall in love with one
Mm.
poem more than the rest of it. Other days, I stumble apart, past a poem that I even probably have forgotten.
You talk about this beautiful reference to hearing a song for the first time and realizing that it's always been playing in the background of your life. Is there a particular song that this reminds you of?
Unfortunately, I'm like early generation Tumblr kid. So so like
Unfortunately.
unfortunately, also fortunately as well.
Yeah.
So hearing like the Nostalgia Ultra
Yeah.
mixtape by Frank, some of the songs I felt I
Yeah.
felt it in a way that felt almost it was so tailored to my soul that my soul already knew it. Like the first time I heard that tape, I was
Mm.
like, I already know this song. This song is already etched into my soul. I just finished sixth form, which is kind of like late high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really profound to me, man. It really felt like it had been playing in my life the whole
Yeah.
time, and I had just listened for the first time,
Yeah. And that was also around like his open letter on Tumblr. Like I remember
Yes,
that moment so well. Do you need a break between work to reset, or are you someone who just rolls right into the next thing?
I roll in and out of projects. Um, if anything, I'm scolded a lot by my friends to take a break in between. But I think because I feel like every work kind of links to another work, regardless of what it is.
Mhm.
Um, I don't ever feel like I can see the point to take a break. But I'm
Yeah.
working on that. I'm working on
But
it.
I
Yeah.
actually feel like more exhausted by trying to take a break than I do by
Yes.
going into the next thing, and I'm trying to figure out
Yes.
why that is the case. But if you could recommend one book and one film to our audience, what would they be?
Oh, wonderful. I would recommend this book here, If I Survive You. This one right here. I'll definitely recommend that book. And one film I would recommend. I watched it on the plane back from New York, and it had me in tears. Mother of George. It's an absolutely stunning film, and a beautiful study in natural light cinematography.
Yeah.
Bradford Young's best work for me. It's
Wow.
yeah, it's incredible.
Thank you. I want to end on a question from a text exchange you included in the collection. Should you have fear or respect for the person who takes a shit at a house party?
That's a real text, by the way.
I believe that.
Respect.
I fully, wholeheartedly agree.
You know?
Only respect. This was so wonderful, seriously. I'm so happy we got to do this. And this is
Thank
our
you. I
first
had a
one
good
back in a
time.
while. You've been like a true joy. I hope everyone reads this. I've already forced it down everyone's throats, so I'll continue to
I
do so.
appreciate you. Thank you. Bye.